You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. Here we go. Welcome back to the GrantCast. My name is Grant Baciocco, and it is a pleasure to have you here today. And I got a couple things I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to start off by saying, holy cow, Dan Class of The Bitterest Pill is back making episodes. If you do not know Dan Class, and you do not know The Bitterest Pill, you need to correct that immediately, especially if you are a podcast listener, and I assume that you are because you're listening to this podcast. Back when I started podcasting in November of 2007, the first two podcasters I heard were Mur Lafferty, and she's got a great podcast called I Should Be Writing, but back then it was Geek Fu Action Grip. And the other podcaster was Dan Class of The Bitterest Pill. And Dan became a very good friend of mine when we were doing Radio Adventures of Dr. Floyd. Dan was even in an episode of the Radio Adventures of Dr. Floyd. Actor, comedian. But he has, one of the original, I'm just going to talk and I'm going to tell you about my day. And kind of during COVID, I think he did a couple episodes maybe at the beginning of COVID, and then they kind of went away. But he is back, and he is recording. So I'll have a link to The Bitterest Pill and Dan Class in the show notes for this episode. You should check it out. It's always good stuff. And the great news is you can just subscribe and start where it is. And I'm hoping that he keeps putting out episodes because they're a lot of fun. The second thing I wanted to talk about is Stephen Staver, my amazing editor. Stephen Staver is just has been so much help for several years now in helping me get podcasts edited. He is the podcast editor for Under the Puppet. He is the podcast editor for the Country Bear Collector Show. He is the podcast editor for Attraction Checklist. He is the podcast editor now for this podcast, but he does so much more. He he edits like a ton of toily stuff, the poop word of the day. He's always there. He's always there when I have a question about the internet because I'm an old man and sometimes I don't understand things. And now Stephen Staver is editing this podcast. So big thank you to Stephen Staver. Also, if you saw the last episode, listen to the last episode of the GrantCast, which was the I Witnessed a Crime at Outdoor Ed or whatever the title of that one is, the last one. He did the artwork. He's one of those people that dabbles with the AI artwork. And so he did the artwork for the poor slug with the salt on him. So big thank you to Stephen. He will probably be doing the artwork for this. I don't know. We'll see. And lastly, I just wanted to say Twitter, huh? That's kind of topical. Although by the time this comes out, it probably won't be topical, or maybe it will be even more topical. So yeah, I still have accounts on Twitter. The thought sickens me, but I may restart a Facebook account because, and this is the only reason, Toilet Tea Paper, my character, in May of 2022, had 15,000 followers on Instagram. Today, the day I'm recording this, not the day you're hearing it, November 20th, 2022, Toilet clicked over to 222,000 followers on Instagram. I cannot get him verified on Instagram. And I think the reason, I talked to Randy Feltface about Heath McIver, who is the puppeteer behind Randy Feltface, how he got Randy verified on Instagram. And he said that he had to create a Facebook page. And so now I'm thinking that the way to do this is I have to create a Facebook page. So anyway, but my whole point of this is Instagram, if you want to follow me, Throwing Toasters. I think I'll still do promotional tweets on Twitter. We'll see what happens with Twitter. I signed up for this Mastodon. I'm barely understanding it because of the first thing that they ask you to do is pick a server. And it's like, well, how do you know what server? I don't know what server. But I'm on there too as Throwing Toasters. So anyway, if you want to join me, that's where you can join me at any of those places. Now, the thing I wanted to talk about is something that happened it's something that happened back in October of 2022 when I got COVID. Now, I promise you, this podcast is not going to be talking about me having COVID, okay? That's not what this is about. But it starts with me getting COVID. The Monday morning I started having symptoms of COVID, I said to myself, you're getting sick. And the reason you're getting sick is because you're not sleeping. And one of the reasons you are not sleeping is because you are driving home Sunday night after the last Puppet Up show. And, you kind of just run out from the theater, you throw your stuff in the car, and you get in the car and you drive home. And by the time you get home, it's usually 1:30. You are not in my show clothes, but, still in that show energy, a little bit of sweatiness, all that stuff. And so being out in the cold night air is not good, staying up late. By the time you get in bed, it's 2:30. You're still amped up from the show. So you look at your iPad for a while, you finally fall asleep, and then you get up at 6 a.m. and that's why you're sick. So I truly believe that. I was like, that's why I'm starting to get sick. Well, it turns out that I had COVID, but probably being so tired and so worn down was not helping things. It probably didn't help. And the other thing is, nobody else in the cast, nobody else in the crew got COVID. So, and I don't know if anybody was doing the crazy thing that I was doing. People were driving home, but waking up so early, a lot of people who were driving home were able to sleep in Monday mornings. I was not. So anyway, I went through the whole thing of having COVID. And then when I finally was able to go back to Puppet Up, I made a decision. And the decision I made was, and I made the decision even before I left to go down to Knott's Berry Farm. Because usually the drive home decision was a decision I would make in the moment. The show would be over. I would head back to the hotel. I would be like, yeah, I feel good. I'm going to drive home tonight, and I would drive. And it's a decision I made in the moment. But once I was better and once I tested negative for the COVID and I was going to go back into the show, I made the decision that I was going to drive home Monday. Now, driving home Monday, has its pros and cons. The pro is you're not tired. The con is driving from Knott's Berry Farm to my house takes, at 1:30 in the morning, it's only 30 minutes. But during the day, you got to plan an hour. So what I would thought was like, oh, well, I'll wake up in the morning. I'll just get a slow start. I'll go get breakfast somewhere. And then 10:30 or 11, I'll drive home. And then, traffic won't be as bad because it'll be kind of middle of the day. You can do that on a Monday. The plus about driving home on after the show on Sunday is you get home and then you have the whole day Monday. You're not arriving at home halfway through the day. But anyway, before I went back down to Knott's Berry Farm, I made the decision I'm not driving home after the show tonight. And let me tell you something. The moment I made that decision, it felt like a weight lifted off of my shoulders. It really did. It felt like, okay, I know what this is all going to be about. It's not some last minute decision that I'm going to have to make. I just know that I'm going to be able to sleep in Sunday night, get back to the hotel, relax. I don't have to worry about packing up all my stuff. Because what I would do is before I made the decision about going down, I would pack up all my stuff and just in case I decided to go home. And what I found was usually when I packed up my stuff, I would just go home because the stuff was already packed up. So I was like, I'll pack up my stuff Monday morning. I'll sleep in as late as I want. And as I said, the moment I made that decision, I felt really good. I was like, yeah, okay, this is all taken care of. And so it was sort of a lesson to me. And that's why I'm saying it to you, not to be like, let it be a lesson to you. I'm just saying it was a lesson to me to make a decision. And a lot of times I think all of us are waffling back and forth about a decision. And once you make the decision, it kind of frees things up. And it may be the wrong decision. I may leave on a Monday and get stuck in traffic and spend 3 hours driving home, in which case it was probably the wrong decision. But That's a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing dealing with that. But making the decision and not having this thing hanging over your head, like, will I do this? Won't I do this? It really feels kind of good. So basically what I'm saying is make the decision. You know what I mean? Just don't let it hang over your head, and just decide something. And, think about it. You're not going to make spur of the moment things. And I know this is not a life or death decision that I made. I just decided, like, you know what? I'm going to wait till Monday to drive home. But it freed me up so much. I had a great show that night. And then I was just like, everybody else was scrambling to go home. And I was just like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to enjoy my evening. I'm going to go back to my hotel room. I'm going to look at my iPad then, and I'll probably go to bed at 1:30, the time I would be headed home. So that's my advice to you, my friends, listening to the sound of my voice. Make a decision. And that's also going to do it for this episode of the GrantCast. I want to thank you for listening. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you for telling a friend. And we will talk to you next time right here on the GrantCast. This episode of the GrantCast was edited by Stephen Staver, who probably also did the artwork as well with his fancy AI machine. This episode was made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who've gone to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up a pledge for as little as $1 a month. Big shout out to all our patrons, and a special shout out to our patron producers, Eve Cunning, Kathy Crawford, Andrew Calcagno, Tony Urbano, Brandy, David Akers, Scott Armstrong, Vicky Sebring, and Dorothy Baciocco. If you'd like to become a patron and receive episodes of the GrantCast before they are released, visit patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up your monthly pledge today. And thank you for your support. This episode of the GrantCast is copyright 2022 Saturday Morning Media, Grant Baciocco, executive producer, all rights reserved. www.saturdaymorningmedia.com.
You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.